Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this week's video, we are going to take a look at sound designing on the SH101, and the 5 patches sound like this. So let's get into it. So first up, I just want to say that the SH101 is one of the best when it comes to beginner sound design. You get to see we have a couple of oscillators, we have one low pass filter, we have some different modulation options here, we have some different modulations for the pulse width over here, and we also have a built-in sequencer and ARP. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit restrictive with the type of sounds that you can make on it, but if you can understand the basics that are going on here, you can take them onto another synth that has a little more options and so on, and just kind of build up on that instead of starting with something with a full mod matrix and everything like that. It can be a little bit daunting to try and wrap your head around everything. So first up, let's make a bass, and we can see if I play it now, we have no sound going. We have these 3 oscillators here, so this would generate the sound. First up, we have a square pulse. So if we increase that, it's a little clicky. Let's just add a little bit of an envelope for now. And you can see we have the pulse width. So if we set it to manual, you can see I can control that just with this slider here. So if you want something a little more raspy, you can go all the way, or if you want nothing at all, you can kind of go down to 0 and everything in between. Obviously, you can see we've got the LFO and envelope. So LFO, you can have this LFO here adjust that pulse width. So if we pull that down a little bit, bring up the pulse width to about 50%. And you can hear that going there. And then if we increase the rate of that LFO, so let's keep that around sort of 2 or 3. Obviously, we can also set it to the envelope. So increase that attack. And that envelope is dictating how this slider moves. So let's bring that attack back down again. Let's bring that release down, bring that decay down, and then we'll set this back to LFO. So now we have a little bit of movement from the LFO to the pulse width. Next up, we're going to add some sawtooth in. Makes it a little bit more raspy. And then from there, we're going to add a little bit of the sub oscillator. And you can see this little white line here. That links it to these options here. So if we let's bring up the sub oscillator all the way. We have 1 octave down, 2 octave down, and then 2 octave with a finer pulse. So for the patch that we're going to use, or we're going to make, is we're going to go 2 octaves down, and we're going to keep it as just a regular square, and we'll go about 50%. Bring back up the other 2 oscillators. Now that we've made the sound, and we're going to come across, we're not going to use the noise for now. And now we have the VCF section, which is here, it's like boxed off. We have the frequency, and then the resonance, and then we have envelope, mod, and keyboard. So keyboard tracking will go all the way to full, and then the envelope, we're going to go all the way to full. We're going to bring the frequency down. So now this frequency is affected by this envelope by this much, and that's going to be the full 10. So I've just put in a little sequence here, and we can push play. Now I want that sequence and I want those notes to hit a little more plucky. So obviously we're going to pull down the sustain. And we'll bring down the decay a little bit. Again, increase that sustain just a little bit more. And then we got the release here. So it tails off nicely in between each of those sounds. Lastly, we're going to look at increasing some of this mod. So what we can do is we'll come across to the triangle wave, and then we'll increase this mod. If I bring down the envelope all the way, you can hear it going there. So if I have it on a square, it's just on and off. With a triangle, it sort of sweeps it in a little bit more. So what we're going to do is just pull that down a little bit. We just want a little bit on top, and then bring out the envelope. Bring that down to around 50%. Lastly, we can go back in and add a little bit of noise to kind of grit up the patch a little bit. A little goes a long way with the noise, I find. So and then we can increase this LFO rate to increase the pattern speed, but then just be aware that it's also going to increase this pulse width speed. So but there we go. Nice, simple, sort of plucky bass, utilizing almost all the features on here. And let's move on to the next one. Next up, we're going to make a noisy lead. And for that, we're going to utilize sending the noise into the mod to kind of create a nice sort of, almost like a vinyl-y, if you got a lead sound off a vinyl record or something like that, a very, very dusty, dirty vinyl record. So first up, we're going to keep the LFO pulse width, the pulse width on LFO, sorry, and we're going to increase the square wave or pulse wave. We're going to keep that at around 50%. So we've got a little bit of movement on there. We're going to increase the sawtooth all the way. And you hear we've got a nice little bit of movement there. And then for the sub, we're going to go all the way with the sub. And we're going to increase this to +1. Because it's a lead sound, we want it to be a little bit higher. Next, we're going to come back. Actually, let's move forward and then we can add the other bits in later. So we're going to keep the noise to 0, and then the frequency we're going to go all the way down for now. And then we'll increase the envelope to about 50%. And keyboard tracking all the way. So we have a real faint sound in there. From here, I'm going to add a little bit of the frequency. I'm going to open up the filter frequency. So let's go load. So we got that playing. So now as we shape things, we can kind of get a bit more of an idea of what's going on. We want to increase the we want to shape this envelope a little bit more. So let's want a nice sort of open the attack a little bit. Decay, we're going to go to about 50%. Sustain just below it, and then release will keep in line with the sustain there. So we can pull down that filter frequency just a little bit. And then from here, we want to look at the mod. So at the moment, it's set to the triangle, and if you can see it kind of gives that sound, but we want to utilize the random noise. So we're going to go all the way over to random noise. And then we'll start to increase this mod. So a lot, I'll do it a lot, and then we'll back it off. You can hear there, it really is going crazy on the rest of the sound. We just want a little bit in there. Pull that down a little bit. Pull this frequency down a little bit. Increase the volume just a little bit there. And we can go transpose it up a little bit. And you can just play with that mod there to kind of get the desired effect that you're after. And that's about it for that one. So with this patch, we've utilized the mod on the filter, and we've sent the random noise into that to kind of really disturb that sort of filter and give it that sort of rough sort of sound. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so for the next one, we're going to make kind of an organy sound, but obviously it's a mono instrument, so it's going to be an organy kind of lead sort of thing. So for this, we're going to start with our pulse width, and we're going to come down to about 50%, and then we're going to set that to manual, and then we're going to go all the way to the top so we get that sort of raspy. If I bring it down one octave, you kind of hear that sort of raspy sort of sound there. We're going to come along and we're going to add in some sawtooth, about 75%. So and then we're going to keep the sub oscillator off. From here, we're going to move across, and we're going to add, we're not going to add any noise today, but we're going to bring this frequency down, and then we're going to increase the resonance. So the resonance is at about 4, and the frequency is at about 2 there. Envelope, we're going to bring that down to about 4 or 5. We'll go 5, and then for the mod, we're not going to go with the random noise. We're going to bring it back around to the triangle. We're going to increase that rate to about 5, and we're going to increase this because it's going to be that sort of vibrato at the end of it. Keyboard tracking, we're going to pull that down to about 6. And then for the envelope, we'll go attack down decay sort of around 4 or 5, sustain about halfway, and then release the same. So now we can start to increase the envelope amount and the frequency, the cutoff frequency and resonance to kind of get enough volume in there. Pull that mod down and then and that's about it for that patch. Maybe a little bit more release on there. A little bit more release. And there we go. So for this one, we've taken the pulse width, changed it to manual to get that nice raspy sort of attack on it. No sub oscillator, pretty basic frequency and resonance, but then we've used the mod in the form of the triangle to kind of give a little bit of vibrato throughout the whole patch, but then you can really hear it on the back end of when I play the notes. And then obviously a pretty standard sort of ADSR there. So let's move on to the next one. So for this one, we're gonna make another kind of a dusty lead. We're gonna obviously switch it up a little bit. To start with, we're gonna look at the triangle. We're gonna, triangle. It's a sawtooth. We're gonna increase the sawtooth all the way. We're gonna keep the pulse down to 0. We're gonna have the sub up around 4 or 5, and we're gonna bring we'll keep it at 1 octave. Since it's a lead, we want to have it be sort of in the same family sort of thing. If it's too low, it's good and it will work for other things, but since we're making just a straight lead, let's go all the way to 1 octave. We're going to pull down the filter freak and add some resonance there. We're going to pull down the envelope all the way. The mod is obviously going to get set to noise again. Keyboard tracking up to about 75%. And then we're going to increase that attack to about 6, decay 6.5, 7, sustain all the way, and then release is going to be around 6. We could add a little bit more frequency on the cutoff. Another thing we can do is pull that back down. It's kind of pretty buried in there, but what we can do is come across here, and we've got some different options here. We can increase this VCF, and then so when we start to play it, we can pull that down just a little bit. It's nice and sort of gives me the sort of like a sound in the wind sort of thing. Okay, so there we go. There's another sort of lead, kind of borrowing from the other one a little bit, but kind of giving us some different options on the ADSR, just having the slower attack. And then we utilize this sort of section here to have the filter frequency be attached to the bender, so we can control that there instead of having to control the filter frequency from here on the actual VCF section. So lastly, let's look at a effect. For this, we are going to use no oscillators. So I'm going to bring them all the way down. We're going to keep the frequency all the way down and then the resonance all the way up. We can bring these down for now. So we have it's so low I can't even hear it on the headphones. Let's come across to the ADSR and increase. So now we got a little click there with the sound. And what we want to do is we want to introduce some of this envelope, some of the mod and the keyboard tracking. So let's go keyboard tracking all the way up. And then the envelope. So you can see we just got the decay, and let's increase the release there so it doesn't just stop when I stop playing. So let's increase that a little bit more. We can go up to the higher register. So that sounds pretty good, but we want it to have a little bit more movement. So we can utilize that mod again and the LFO. So for this, we're going to go to the square wave. And then as I increase it, we're going to start to get the sort of pitching up and down. So it's kind of like that sort of 80s, 70s arcade sort of sound there. Let's increase that a little bit more. And then so there you go. Super simple. We've learnt some different modulation options with not utilizing any of the oscillators. We're just using the resonance with some modulation from the LFO and the envelope to kind of get that sort of pitch sound. If we wanted to, we could go decay down, attack up, and then it's going to go up and then obviously down because we got the release on there. But that's about it for today. Hopefully you've got something out of some of this very basic sound design on the SH101. And again, you can transfer these sort of principles onto most other synths as long as you have like a couple of oscillators, some ability to modulate the pulse width, and some ability to send modulation to the frequency of the filter, and a basic ADSR. At the end of the day, hopefully this has inspired you to create something. Until next time, see you later.